Hello and welcome to another episode of the Midierror Meets podcast, where we speak to all sorts of people who work in sound and music. On the show this time we've got Dave Clarke, who is one of the pioneering techno producers and DJs of the last 30 years. He was given the moniker the Baron of Techno by John Peel, who is one of the all-time most heralded DJs in British history. He's released seminal albums, he's released seminal tracks, remixes, all kinds of stuff, and his live shows and energy have to be seen to be believed. You can support the podcast in a few different ways if you like. You can donate. You can also just share it and like the podcast. That also really helps. A lot of other podcasts maybe have more than one person working on them. This one doesn't. It's just me from my bedroom. So any support is really, really appreciated. But that's enough of that. Let's get on with the show. And the first thing that I asked Dave was about his musical beginnings.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because it starts in different ways. But music started for me through my father and my mother. Weirdly enough, my father was into technical stuff, so had record decks, reel-to-reel, spring reverb, disco lights. He used to cut reel-to-reel and edit it. Still remember the smell of the chalk on the cutting block and the felt underneath. And my mother used to collect disco records, so I was sort of into it from them. And then my own taste developed around punk music and ska and things like Ecstasy, Making Plans for Nigel, things like that. And so then I sort of got into it in that way, and then I had various epiphanies whilst I was growing up, and one of them was through Gustav Holst at school when they did it's always a worrying story how it starts off, but it ends up okay when a religious teacher takes a group of young boys into a darkened room, of course, and then plays a vinyl version of Gustav Holst at the same time as playing, in those days it was video film of the planets sort of at the same time. And that for me was like an epiphany because it sort of linked everything together, and Gustav Holst sort of encapsulated what Pythagoras had said before. And this was like I would say my first techno experience really, hearing Gustav Holst, the Planet Suite. And then of course my father already was a fan of a Japanese guy called Tomita, and he had like the Planet Suite by Tomita as well. And then when you heard those, and at that time there's also actually thinking about, there was also Star Wars was out, but there was also the disco version by Miko, I think it was. And there was like all these electronic weird sounds as well. And so it was all sort of coming together in that way. And then I would say at school, it started to formulate really deeply with electro and hip hop.
Fantastic, man. What was your dad doing with all of the equipment that he had?
Sadly, playing James Last. So that's where the music part separated. But no, I mean, I would watch him because in those days, of course, electric power wasn't actually even in the walls. It was actually, with like a metal or plastic tubing on the outside with a box that used to fit on the outside of the wall. And, I remember him with a big, I think it was the 10-pound hammer, which I had hit on my hand before. And it hurts. It's the first time I heard my father swear. And I do remember him saying, "Ruddy hell." So, he even kept his composure even in those days, which is amazing considering the outside sources taken away his composure. But I remember him like hitting hammer, putting the cable in the wall, putting the plug sockets in the wall so they're flush, and then having car speakers and then running car stereo speaker cable all the way from the amplifier in the tiny living room downstairs all the way up to the bathroom upstairs, so you could actually listen to the radio in the bath.
Nice.
Not only could you listen to the radio in the bath, but he actually worked it so it sounded better through the spring reverb with a minimum of like half a second or something. So it had that warmth. I mean, my father actually did, I never heard it, sadly. I'd like to hear it, but my father did a little thing on BBC Radio Sussex about quadraphonics.
Oh, wow.
Talking about it because he was really into quadraphonics as well. So yeah, it sort of all came from there. So my father was like much more into the technical side of things, the engineering side of things. And I think that's comes from a variety of reasons. Firstly, he wanted, when he left school, I believe that he wanted to be either an artist, like a painter, or an architect, but ended up being an accountant to support the family. So I think these things came out of frustration as well, and interest, of course. So we'd be putting together these really convoluted hi-fi chains, which I would really enjoy like looking, and he would trust me enough to have like a big set of JVC headphones on my head, listening to an album really close next to the amplifier like you used to in those days, and actually looking at the record as it went round, because there wasn't much else. You couldn't look at your phone or anything. It was like either that or sit on the sofa and read the album cover. So I remember that. And then of course he had like video recorders, and then he actually managed to get the audio out of the video recorder to the speakers, and he had a set of tannoy speakers. That's my love of tannoys. How that started was because of my father. And then my mother would, because she was at home all day, would basically play music really, really loud and basically piss off everyone next door, and cause massive arguments with the neighbours all the time. But that's how I got into hi-fi itself, actually.
Nice, man.
And actually, when I was 8 or 9 years old, or maybe 10 actually, when I got my first record player, I had a train that was given to me by my grandfather, like a big tin train, and at the end of it there was like a green light that came out about that much, and that green light was the only thing that was really battery operated within that train, so it had cables coming out. And I worked out if I took out that light and then put that light through the keyhole of my bedroom with blue tack, and then on the other side had the battery attached to the door with blue tack, every time I lit that light, no one could knock on the door, because I was using my mono tape recorder with a really cheap microphone, recording the records and then pretending I was a DJ.
Nice. Like a Red Means recording, sort of.
It was green, is the only color I had. But yeah, it's like, don't come in when the light is green, which of course goes against the grain, but yeah. And then I used to borrow my father's like battery powered, ever ready powered AA shop hazard car light that you would have at the back, which would have like a little plastic triangle thing, so you can then switch it on. The yellow light would flash to warn other motorists. That would be like disco light number one. And I would go into the kitchen when my mother wasn't looking and steal all the tinfoil, and not put it as a hat, obviously, because I'm not that sort of conspiracy theorist. But I would actually put it all over the walls everywhere, and then that was the beginning of Dave's Disco.
Yeah, I did read that on a John Peel website that says about you having the foil on the inside of the walls. That's cool, man. And yeah, Tomita was really, really amazing composer, wasn't he?
Well, I wouldn't say composer, but electronic, because all the music that I know from Tomita is like Debussy, Gustav Holst. So obviously he was, but to do it the way that he did, it's interesting that, because obviously when you listen back in time through more scientific ears, you hear how thin everything sounded, say, compared to Vangelis. And that was really interesting as well. But I mean, Tomita was like massively important. And then going forward, like 40 odd years, is like Tomita sort of helped me have the guts to do Gustav Holst in a different way at Charles de Gaulle Airport live with Mathilde as well, because it was so part of me, and then I can bring that forward. And then again, where you can dissect classical music, you can change it, you can do your own thing to it, and that sort of gave me the guts 4 years earlier.
Amazing, man. His album Snowflakes Are Dancing is one that I'm familiar with and have bought a couple of copies of. And I wasn't aware that you did that with Gustav Holst, but it is a ridiculously powerful four pieces of music, isn't it? The Planets.
Yeah.
There was a story I read that you were given a mixer by your chemistry teacher.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
I was unteachable at school, like completely unteachable, really desperate. Well, I mean, a couple of things happened in my life. Firstly, for quite some time, I didn't actually have a bedroom. I was sleeping in what was called the dining room, but actually was the storage space for everything that wasn't wanted in the house. And I was actually sleeping there on a fold-out sofa because the house, all the bedrooms that were there, which is basically like one and a half, I had like a bedroom, but that was taken away from me, and then another half bedroom, which was my old little cupboard bedroom when I was like a little child. And they were taken away from me for a few years during the summer and spring months. So like about 4 months a year, 5 months a year, I didn't have a bedroom for maybe 2 years. And I didn't have anywhere to do my homework. And I didn't have anyone interested in me doing homework, or anyone even remotely interested in me at school, actually, except when I got the bad report. And then it's like, you're not doing well at school, son, you need to do more. And then no interest. So I don't know. I mean, I had all the best intentions like all kids. It's like at the beginning of term, when you get your new stationery kit and you get your Danger Mouse rubber, which smells incredible. I still remember the smell of that Danger Mouse rubber now. It's like, I'm sure I can eat it. It smells really good. And, you know, you got your new Stablo Boss marker pen, and you got your new Sharp HB pencil, and you think, this is the I'm going to do shit. This is going to be, and, you know, 3 days later, you know, smoking cigarettes, emptying salt and vinegar into your school blazer so it doesn't make a racket, and then you can eat them softly at the back of the class. It'd already gone out the window. I just like wasn't interested at all. Gone, whatever. You know, in those days we'd all wear fingerless gloves. You remember the fingerless gloves, like probably Robert Smith would wear, and we'd all think we'd go into school thinking, no, we don't smell like we're smoking cigarettes. Now, of course, you can smell anyone a mile away.
Yeah, and 20 meters away.
These fingerless gloves basically smell like orange tart, you know, because you've just been smoking at the back of the number 5 and number 49 bus for like half an hour to get to school. And it's like, you stink like a fucking, you know. So basically the whole of my education had completely gone skew if. It had gone out the window, and I'd like get the cane and constantly be in trouble. And so I just was unteachable. I just wasn't interested. And when I was interested, I didn't have the environment to really do it any justice, right? So I couldn't really, you know, my family had broken up and everything was chaotic. So I didn't really have the environment. So I think the chemistry teacher took a little bit of pity on me. I don't know, but not in a horrible way. And actually over a summer holiday lent me a very basic Tandy realistic battery powered mixer. And then I started to work out how to use that without very speed, without any of that stuff. And then it was like really interesting. And then the different impedance, like it had a microphone channel, and what would it be like if I plugged in the phono into the microphone channel? I was like, oh wow, distortion, this is really interesting. So I learned a little bit, and then I had to get cables in those days, which anything was expensive if you had to spend any money on it if you didn't have it. So I managed to get some cables, and it was interesting. So that whole summer I had a mixer and learned a little bit about it.
When would you